So electric vehicles was kind of fun. Those are the three things that I looked at. Future trends, what we can expect. This is interesting stuff because it has to do with increasing usage. I'm gonna skip ahead and come back to a slide that maybe will make this make sense. There's a projection.
Can I interrupt just a real quick second, just to get back to what you were saying about what the has to do and that. But you were also, and part of the long range committee was also had the assistance of staff. So this is a cohorted effort between staff and you guys to come up with this information. So this is
so that the information and the facts are accurate, so that the board can decide what to do with that.
Right, and with the help of staff. So
Yes.
this isn't in the background.
Right. I mean, that's where the reality therapy came from staff on whether or not the information was accurate, and supplied a lot of information.
Part of the disclose too.
Yeah.
Who's in charge of choosing the facts to present? I mean, that's, because there's lots of stuff out here.
Yeah, there's some individual license evident.
It's an individual license.
Yeah,
Thank you
it's an
very much.
individual license to say, here, I decided to show you this fact, see what you think of that.
Right.
And so on. And here's, in that case with EVs, I used a little individual license, because there's a lot of places you can go to say, what's gonna happen with electric vehicle usage. And so, to explain this chart says that we could go from almost zero, and I went to the clerk's offices in LaPlata County and Arcata County, and we had, in LaPlata County, 22 EVs in 2017 and 65 in 2018, and in Arcata County, we had 2 and 5. So based on those numbers, how do you get here? Which says we could get as much as 13,000 EVs in our territory in 15 years. And it sounds a little crazy until you say, well, based off of those base numbers, we actually have some here, and based on what the State Energy Office says, the projection for 2032 is that 15% of all vehicles would likely be EVs in a high case scenario. So that it is the high case scenario. So at 15%, today in LaPlata County, there's 55,000 registered vehicles. Increase that at 1.5% per year for those number of years, and then say 15% of that in 2032. And then what's the projection look like between now and then? And then I interpolated my own numbers there. Dan did the same exercise independently, came out at about 13,000 as well. He has a more prettier straight line projection, and I have this scallop in there because I based it off of the real numbers today that are really low, and it says they're gonna increase over these years. Yeah.
What was the kind of low percentage estimation? If we're looking at a spread, 15% is the high?
Yeah, the low's in the high single digits. Yeah, so in the 8-9% or so. So we just looked at this one scenario here. So what makes you believe this could be true when there are few of them today? Yeah.
Question. So Britt, he's not here. Are his numbers for, what did he say, 40% growth per annum based on these numbers?
They're linked to these numbers.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know if they're exact, but they're based on that same range of, if you take that number of cars and multiply by kilowatts and so forth, what does that do to our sales rate of electricity? Yeah, so that's what
You mean cars and pickup trucks, right?
EVs.
EV.
Yeah. Now what this is though is EVs, not anything that's a hybrid plug-in electric. So it doesn't include anything about that, because there's about, I don't know, there's over 100 of those in LaPlata County. So they're using some electricity too. So I just made it simpler by just going with EVs and their impact on sales. So what would make you believe it could get to that number? And this is my charts are a little wordy because I want to put a lot of information here to try to help explain this. But what makes us think we could grow at that rapid rate? So I kind of believe it. I happened to buy a Bolt this last year and see where this can happen. The sticker prices have gone from Teslas that were, they were easily $75,000 down to Bolts that are about $35,000 that are selling in the U.S. today. So costs are coming down rapidly just on the sticker price. But people that get into it look at the cost of usage, what it costs to actually drive it. So driving an EV costs about 4 cents a mile based on our current cost per kilowatt versus $3 gas costs you about 12 cents a mile to drive a car, and that doesn't include maintenance. We don't do any oil changes or those kind of things, and many fewer moving parts. You don't replace water pumps and so on. So I think that's even low, so it's 1/3 less the driving cost. Charging availability is talked about a lot, you know, and they talk about range anxiety and all that. I think you have to separate that in two worlds, you know, the commuter world with the ranges in vehicles today. So the Bolt's range is stickered at 239. We actually often get about 260, 270 miles on a charge. So if you do all the daily average driving for people in commuting and their daily usage, that completely takes care of almost every user out there on a daily basis. So the range anxiety is only for travelers and people that are tourists and going out there, because when you can take it home and you plug it in at night and charge it, and that takes care of all that concern, and often workplaces have charging and so forth, makes it seem like charging availability isn't a big issue for day-to-day use. It is a big issue for tourists traveling through, and so our tourist economy is going to count a lot on level 3 charging coming around and availability increasing. Next to last on that chart, model availability. Why are people going to buy more of these cars? When models become available, you walk in the showroom. Today, if you walk around here in the showroom, you can find a Leaf and you can find a Bolt down the street here, and that's it. And there's no SUVs and really no four-wheel drives.
I'll send you the article.
Well, and I was going to come back to your point, and you can pick any of the big automakers, and GM says they will have 20 models in 2020. You know, VW, so on and so forth. Yeah, they'll have all these different models will be available. So you're talking in the next 2 or 3 years for SUVs and trucks, which will drive that adoption in our area, is all happening. And you know, Tesla's out there. If you're a bicycle racer, Tesla's out there kind of like the breakaway. You know, they're out. But the Peloton is behind and catching fast. All the big guys are coming after that market, and they believe that's where the sales are going to be in the future. And they're not wild-eyed, crazy environmentalists. They're capitalists, and they think that's where the money is. And so they're putting all their investment in the future in those cars. So once you walk in the showroom and half the cars are EVs, and they show you that you can buy it for 1/3 the price, probably a lot of people are going to adopt that.
Ceteris paribus, could you speculate on what that does to the wholesale power price? It's
So
gonna drive it up, right? I mean, if you were to, you know, ceteris paribus, unless you have a huge new generation capacity come on, people coming home from, most people I would predict, will be plugging their vehicle into the wall at their house at night. Because that's where the garage is, and that's where the plug is, and they walk in there,
Yeah.
and it's you know, right after they close the garage door, they slam the plug in the wall and walk in the house and cook dinner. I think we could speculate that's gonna drive up the wholesale power price.
Well, there's
If you had huge adoptions of EVs.
A couple things there. One is it's going to increase electricity consumption a lot. We do
Yes.
that. But as Dan would say, like, then we've really got to engineer rates. So that I can go home and plug mine in right now, but I do a little program in the car where it won't start charging until 10, so that I'm going to charge
sure.
at off-peak time. And so we'll create rate structures so that people use off-peak time to charge.
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
It's likely to happen in many cases when the sun is not shining, though,
Yeah,
that's for sure.
yeah. And it'll be off-peak, cheaper power. We can use it as a way to offset some of this loss to solar and other things, but, so I don't know if net it's gonna increase consumption. Right now, the US is long on power, so it'd be good to be sucking up that power with electric cars. So, what it'll net have the effect on wholesale market, I'm not sure, but raising it doesn't seem likely. So anyway, yeah.
To Doug's point, yes, most people I think would charge it at home, but then if you charge it at your employer's, then it would be a daytime
Sure.
use, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
You had on the previous slide, the last item was environmental benefits.
Mhm.
But isn't it plugging your electric vehicle into your power source? You've just moved the fossil fuel consumption up the line to where you're probably charging that car with fossil fuels,
You could be.
or at least a certain
Yeah,
percentage
it's a
of it.
percentage of it for sure. I think what this trend, you know, suggests about the future is that more and more people that do charge like that get more and more concerned about where the power really comes from. And already the push to get greener energy out there will just increase. So, you know, so more and more people are gonna wanna do the solar and store it in a battery and use it in their car, or make sure that their power supplier is doing that for them. Because I think most people get it now that it isn't really any more environmentally friendly. if I'm just using coal power to charge my electric car.
No emissions.
I think,
That's one.
yeah, so there's a help, there's a
Yeah.
help, but most users would like to believe that it's a better stream if it comes from a renewable source all the way around, but it doesn't today. But I think it's a push that'll keep pushing us more and more in that direction. So, today our impact on sales is very, very small. Those 100 vehicles in our area don't impact sales much. But if and when you can pick a different number, I think a lot of these charts, what the usefulness of them to us as the board is that we actually get to, in combination with staff, we get to fill in these real numbers over time and change the projections. So it's only a few months away till I go to the clerk's office next February and go to EV registrations now, and you get another real number. And the more we get more real numbers plugged in, then we get projections that we're more confident in, because any of them can change a lot and they can go up or down, but the more we plug in real numbers into projections, the more we can believe them. But the impact on sales, and this is in megawatt hours, 63,000 megawatt hours could be the amount of sales in 2032. That's about, if energy rates increase at 1.2%, roughly what we pay for power, that's about $12 million in net sales, gross sales, I should say, gross sales to LPEA in that year, that coming year out. It's negligible until about year 6 or 7, where it gets to be about $1 million a year and increases from then on. So for us, it's a real revenue stream potential, and lots of ways to manage that or incent that or do lots of things with it, because we have a consumer base, hopefully, that's increasing that we can do more with. Yeah.
Do you have any thoughts on what the government's gonna do about new road taxes?
Right now in Colorado, you pay I think it's $40. You know, there's a one-time charge when every year when you register the car. That's a replacement for the gas tax. So I think it's 40. But I'll check on that. So that's one thing they've already done. Whether they'll do more with taxes or something, I don't know. I'll find out what that real number is.
So it's megawatt sales per year by 2032.
Yeah.
70,000.
Yeah, 63,000, 65,000.
Less than 1%.
It's about 10%.
So
It could be as much as 10% of our sales, right? Yeah.
And so, in addition to sales and all those things, this also should be cueing us to look towards some infrastructure upgrades in a big way.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I think you divide that infrastructure idea into two camps. There's, how do we encourage people to have more of these cars and charge at home at the right time? You know, there are people out there that are providing an incentive to, if you buy an electric car, they'll give you a level 2 charger to install it at your house. And with it comes, and you have to sign up to be on a time of use rate that goes with that. So if you buy the car, we supply the charger, and you agree to be on time of use.
there's also a potential for discharge. That's what Chris was saying.
Yeah, I hear different things on that. Some people say you're not gonna wanna do that because you're gonna use up the life of your battery in your car faster. I don't know if we know. I don't know if we
Well,
know.
the essential point that tipped my thinking about it was that your car, if you discharge it rapidly, say to climb a mountain, you know, or to accelerate quickly, you're taking vastly more energy out of the battery than you ever would having it plugged into your house. You know, it's like a 10 kilowatt load on your house versus 60, 70, 80, 100, couple hundred kilowatts.
Yeah.
So it's not as hard on your battery to connect it to your house as to use it in automotive service.
Okay. So a lot more to be learned, but that's a potential. Yeah.
And going on with it, the other part that I've heard that's kind of made me think more likely that it could happen is, again, the controls of the car itself. You can say, I will choose to give you 10% of my battery, no more at any time.
Yeah.
So if you had 1,000 cars, giving a small percentage, it would make a difference. So we're not asking any one car to discharge itself ever. Both the rate at which they could discharge and the amount that they discharge would be controlled.
Yeah. So a lot of potential and opportunity there. Yeah.
You were out of the room when Lori asked the question. Is this chart included in your growth rate charts that you had?
Yes, that was the little tail curve at the end. That was the only reason for it, that we could find that things were likely to grow in what we know now.
Thank you.
So so you talked about Tri-State overstating growth, I think you'll find the same thing with your chart.
We'll find out.
Darn small growth.
So, I mean, I think based on, and that, I don't say that,
Yeah.
so in part based on estimates out of California for the uptake of alternate, fuel vehicles, you know, they've been ratcheted way back over time. And a lot of, for instance, our hydrogen infrastructure, and it's different than electric, but still, you know,
In
changing
this,
people's habits is.
yeah,
is
so we don't know.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Yeah.
Another 3-4 years, when all those models come online and we see what the adoption rate is of that,
Yeah.
then I think the automakers will tell us, if they start scaling back, how many of those are available
Yeah. Yeah.
versus making more available.
Yeah. I don't know how much of that's reliant on the CAFE standards and with what Trump's trying to do, you know, to ratchet all those back.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's just such an uncertain time.
Do these estimates include a certain disincentive to buy a electric vehicle because of the advance in technology? I've read articles that says that you really take a hit on the resale value of that vehicle. Like if you buy an electric vehicle today and you want to sell it in 5 years, technology has advanced such that the vehicle you have today has a very low resale value because of the advanced technology.
I don't think anybody's models are quite as sophisticated enough to factor that in, and that's there. You know, but I think what you have is that kind of early adopters are going to be small, and they'll probably take the hit on, you know, I'll take the hit on trade-in of my Volt. But there's, you know, 500,000 people have a reservation for a Tesla Model 3 right now, so the numbers are pretty substantial, and the early people will take the hit until those technologies get worked out.
I think what you're gonna find out is, which is already happening, is that as the technology advances, the sleekness of the car improves, the fun of it improves, that the older models, I mean, even the difference between a Leaf last year and a Leaf this year is stunning as far as looks and as far as range. And the Leafs in the previous models are actually selling at a used rate at dirt cheap. So you're gonna see more people who can afford those kind of vehicles and get the appeal of not being able to charge a used fuel that's less of a cost than it is for gasoline.
Yeah, so we don't know
I
what
think
the
you're gonna-
depreciation schedule is, but it's probably pretty steep.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so
There.
it becomes more of a marketable item, used electric vehicles for those that right now can't afford it.
Right.
So I think we're gonna see a lot more of the used vehicles on the road as people start, those that upgrade to the more
I think we can,
advanced.
you know, you can fit these curves a lot more to technology adoption than previous autos and stuff. You know, because it is a technology, you know, when you actually take your car in for a service, it's for a software update. It's not for an oil change, so it's gonna change rapidly because the technology changes rapidly. Yeah.
So earlier you presented, the Colorado Department of Energy said there was kind of this 8 to 15% kind of uptake
Yeah.
projected. And then Lori, you were saying in California they saw kind of significantly lower. So do you think that 8% is lower if we're planning or thinking? Who's to
You know, it's like
say?
any
Who's
projection,
to say?
you know, we don't really have any idea. I just think that it's hard to change people's habits. And maybe, you know, maybe it's all on there, but I think they
Yeah.
do tend to over project.
Yeah, we're optimists, and so that's the high end, and so maybe data will bear out what the truth is. We'll find out.
Lori, I agree that it's hard to change habits, but I'm trying to find my cell phone now, which I can't find, and say that's what blew everything out of the water.
Yeah.
As far as changing people's habits. So apparently this needs to be an app instead of a car. Can we just call it an electric app?
Yeah.
Something, because then,
I think the fact that we have cell phones, I mean, I really think that the whole movement towards kind of new technologies is all about the controls.
Right.
You know, and if we can control, you know, when we charge our car and tell it, oh, hey, you know,
Right.
wait until the rate's really low and stuff.
Right.
So I think the technology is there, it's just a matter of how fast you have to.
Yeah, I guess in one case, this is something where it's all good news for us. You know, it's just how much we take advantage of it, how much we use it to our, you know, consumers and members' advantage. We help increase adoption, making it easier. But there's not a downside that I know for us, you know, other than if the wholesale market goes high.
Another factor that's interesting to watch, and this could actually suppress our sales of electricity and make EVs more attractive at the same time. You know, big box stores are going real heavy for for solar. Like, I think Walmart's put in 150 gigawatts, target 200, and that's, I guess, largely on the roofs of the buildings. It's such big buildings. But, you know, I've heard there is a slight trend that's growing for big companies to offer free electricity to customers. And they've got to compete with Amazon. I think the businesses in town have got to think about this too. It's like a style building or a hustle theater. You plug in while you're shopping. That works well with the nighttime, you know, factor in solar.
Exactly. So that gets us to the big thing about charging. That's where we go next. So yeah. So my thesis is that, you know, day-to-day driving is taken care of at home or at work. If you're lucky enough to park out here or at Smiley or wherever, or at FLC, probably going to be a charging station there sometime soon. That day-to-day commuting is taken care of there. Tourist travel, which we could be impacted by a lot, at some point in time, if you get to 15 or 20%, is going to need level 3 charging and more of it. So I've said, I think, you know, with LPEA, there's a no lose with electric vehicles, but we can choose different strategies. So right now, we can just passively accommodate that, just kind of sit back and watch it happen.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Could you define level 3, please? So what do you mean by level 3 charging?
Yeah, I'm not, sorry, I kind of said that before I got to the slide that has it on there, but yeah. Level 3 levels of charging for electric cars. Standard 110 outlet at your house. Level 1 of that little cord comes with your car automatically, no charge. Level 2 is like the 220 dryer at your house, and you have to buy that for about $400 and have it professionally installed at your house. That's the charger that Vermont Energy and some others are giving you that if you buy the car and agree to go on time to use. So level 2 is kind of that great level of charging at your home because it'll fully charge. You can time it so it comes on at 10 and your vehicle will be fully charged by 2 a.m. or something like that. But level 3 is the 440 volt. Tell me more.
Three-phase,
480. 480?
That's what I would use.
Yeah.
It's faster.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Extremely fast. Most of those that you find around are, they charge you in half-hour blocks, and you get about 80 to 90 miles of range in that half hour doing the level 3 fast charge. Tesla has the widest range of those networks all around, but level 3 is coming for all the others as well. Places like REI or Whole Foods or places like that I've been just driving around have level 3s at their places in parking lots, and you pay for that charge. Almost everything
The
else.
thing about it is you have to have a 3-phase transmission line somewhere nearby to plug into a level 3 charger.
So that's what this slide was, right? Levels of charging we just talked about. That's the level 2 in my garage. So that's what you have to have professionally installed. That goes quite a lot faster, makes it easy to do at home.
Is that professionally installed?
Very professional installed. Yeah, I wouldn't touch it. You kidding? Yeah, I go with like hammer and nail. I end right there.
Yeah.
And then turn it over to someone else. So that's what that is. And level 3 is where we're headed. But in that regard, I mean, this is where our strategic choice is. If you said, so what does this mean for LPEA? We can sit and watch for a while. I think it's safe to sit and watch for a while. I think we're actually already doing quite a bit of active encouragement because you'll see some things on Wednesday where Dan's involved and we're involved in getting grants to try to put in level 3 charging. You know, down here at the Albertsons and that kind of thing, there'll probably be one before long. So I think we're doing active encouragement already. The state's identified corridors where level 3 charging ought to occur, and 160 is one of those second tier, but still within the top level of highways to get level 3 charging. That means you need that kind of charging about every 50 miles, so that tourists then feel like there's a highway they're happy and willing to go on. Yeah.
A really basic question.
Yeah.
Like the plug that you plug into these things, level 1, 2, and 3, and then there's all these different manufacturers.
Yeah.
I mean, is there a standardized plug so that all, like, if LPEA were, for instance, our charging station right out there.
Yeah.
That's a level
multiple
what?
different manufacturers.
That's a level
that
2.
Cars made by, Nissan and Tesla and Porsche and whoever else wants to make them. Can they all plug into that thing, or is there a special plug?
They can all those standard cars we could buy today can all plug in there. Tesla has its own unique configuration that they have adapters for. So
Okay.
everybody, including Tesla, could use that out there. And all of our standard plugs work.
So if, for instance, the state of Colorado, or LPEA, or the nation, or whatever entity you'd like to pick, decides we're going to have charging stations all over the place, it's up to the manufacturers and the car owners to be able to adapt to those things. Because I mean, we couldn't have, if we were to build multiple charging stations, we couldn't have, you know, an array of, it's not like, you know, Apple changing it every 5 years, whether we need to or not, how we plug in our device and charge it, you know?
Yeah, everything that's out there can be used by all cars, including Tesla, mainly because Tesla provides adapters. Every car can't use Tesla. Tesla's is the proprietary one that they've kind of walled off, and we don't have adapters to use there.
So we can't count their charge stations as being usable for all, but we do
No.
need to account for them as far as from a usage, that there are gonna be Tesla owners who are gonna be using that. Right?
Yeah, Tesla, the company, puts in their own charging
Right.
stations. So if they chose to put one here, it'd be great. There's one in Farmington, there's one in Grand Junction. I-70 has a nice corridor of Tesla charging stations.
Is there one in?
There's
not
one at the
EV,
Doubletree.
Is there one in, Ponchos?
Yeah, Poncha Springs there's a brand new Tesla supercharger there.
One in Blanding too.
Yeah, that has probably like 20 plugs, yeah. So when they do it, they put a real deal in. The next step is for the rest of us to be able to get an adapter that works there.
Yeah, vice versa.
Hybrid it.
Yeah, but that hasn't happened yet. But I think we have some fun stuff about doing what we're doing already, partnering with people that want to do corridor development, helping Forecore get grants, do that kind of thing. You know, Forecore, Lori develops, deserves a lot of credit because, you know, the Chevy dealer down here is only carrying the Bolt because of what they did with the Leaf, where they said, we can help you make that happen. So they do it, now you can get service there, and so all those things are happening, yeah.
They also, Forecore for the last 3 years has had grants to put in level 2 charging stations. And so they've been approaching, like we've been working with them at FLC. Sidebar, FLC chose not to for his reason because the grid's too dirty and we don't want to encourage people to drop in coal. So they're really, FLC could lever that and say, hey, we'd love to help you put in this infrastructure, but we need some cleaner energy first.
Yeah, I think it's gonna drive both things.
Say what?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
FLC chose not to put in a charging station because it doesn't help, it actually hinders us in meeting our carbon neutrality goals because the grid is the greatest source of our carbon emissions and pollution. It outstrips.
That's an issue. Okay. So let me move along. A lot of words there, and it mainly just says Colorado has a real plan for putting in level 3 charging on main traffic corridors, 160s, identified as a tier 2 highway. So Dan's all up on this, and there'll be grants available, and we'll be partnering with Forecore, doing it ourselves, trying to help get level 3 charging at 50-mile intervals on 160 in our territory. I think it's part of what our goal will be. I think Dan agrees. They cost, it's the best I could come up with, around between $60,000 and $100,000, depending on location and proximity to all the wiring infrastructure to be able to put in a level 3 charging station. So it needs help to be able to do that. But that's more to be said on that.